I would like to start this off by telling the legend of Bloody Mary as I know it, followed by the story of what happened when me and a few friends played what we believed was an innocent game that was made up from an urban legend meant as a campfire story, or just something used to scare kids. Let me just say, we were horribly wrong. The legend goes something like this. She lived deep in the forest in a tiny cottage and sold herbal remedies for a living. Folks living in the town nearby called her Bloody Mary and said she was a witch. None dared cross the old crone for fear that their cows would go dry, their food stores rot away before winter, their children take sick of fever, or any number of terrible things that an angry witch could do to her neighbors. Then the little girls in the village began to disappear, one by one. No one could find out where they had gone. Grief-stricken families searched the woods, the local buildings, and all the houses and barns, but there was no sign of the missing girls. A few brave souls even went to Bloody Mary's home in the woods to see if the witch had taken the girls, but she denied any knowledge of the disappearances. Still, it was noted that her haggard appearance had changed. She looked younger, more attractive. The neighbors were suspicious, but they could find no proof that the witch had taken their young ones. Then came the night when the daughter of the miller rose from her bed and walked outside, following an enchanted sound no one else could hear. The miller's wife had a toothache and was sitting up in the kitchen treating the tooth with an herbal remedy when her daughter left the house. She screamed for her husband and followed the girl out of the door. The miller came running in his nightshirt. Together they tried to restrain the girl, but she kept breaking away from them and heading out of town. The desperate cries of the miller and his wife woke the neighbors. They came to assist the frantic couple. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed farmer gave a shout and pointed towards a strange light at the edge of the woods. A few townsmen followed him out into the field and saw Bloody Mary standing beside a large oak tree, holding a magic wand that was pointed towards the miller's house. She was glowing with an unearthly light as she set her evil spell upon the miller's daughter. The townsmen grabbed their guns and their pitchforks and ran toward the witch. When she heard the commotion, Bloody Mary broke off her spell and fled back into the woods. The far-sighted farmer had loaded his gun with silver bullets in case the witch ever came after his daughter. Now he took aim and shot at her. The bullet hit Bloody Mary in the hip, and she fell to the ground. The angry townsmen leapt upon her and carried her back into the field, where they built a huge bonfire and burned her at the stake. As she burned, Bloody Mary screamed a curse at the villagers. If anyone mentioned her name aloud before a mirror, she would send her spirit to revenge herself upon them for her terrible death. When she was dead, the villagers went to the house in the wood and found the unmarked graves of the little girls the evil witch had murdered. She had used their blood to make her young again. From that day to this, anyone foolish enough to chant Bloody Mary's name 3 times before a darkened mirror will summon the vengeful spirit of the witch. It is said that she will tear their bodies to pieces and rip their souls from their mutilated bodies. The souls of these unfortunate ones will burn in torment as Bloody Mary once was burned, and they will be trapped forever in the mirror. Now, a little about me and the night we summoned Bloody Mary. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal. I've read countless books and watched countless documentaries on the subject. But it wasn't until I was 16 years old that I experienced something truly terrifying. It was a Friday night, and I was at a sleepover with my friends, Sarah and Emily. We were bored, so we decided to play the Bloody Mary game. We knew it was just a silly urban legend, but we thought it would be fun to see if anything happened. We went to the bathroom and turned off the light. Sarah stood in front of the mirror and said, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." 3 times. Nothing happened at first. We all started to laugh, thinking we had been silly. But then, the mirror began to fog up. Sarah's face became distorted, and her eyes turned black. We screamed and ran out of the bathroom. We were all terrified, but we couldn't believe what we had just seen. We went back to Sarah's room and tried to calm down, but we couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. We were all convinced that we had summoned Bloody Mary. A few minutes later, we heard a noise outside Sarah's window. We went to investigate, and we saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman, and she was dressed in white. We froze in fear. The woman raised her hand and pointed at us. Then she turned and disappeared into the night. We ran back into Sarah's room and locked the door. We were all terrified. We didn't know what to do. We stayed up all night, talking about what had happened. We were all convinced that Bloody Mary was real, and that she was after us. The next morning, we told Sarah's parents what had happened. They didn't believe us at first, but when they saw how scared we were, they called the police. The police searched Sarah's house and yard, but they couldn't find any evidence of the woman in white. They told us that it was probably just a trick of the light, but we knew better. We never played the Bloody Mary game again. A few weeks later, I was walking home from school when I saw the woman in white again. She was standing on the corner of my street, staring at me. I ran as fast as I could, but she followed me. I could hear her footsteps behind me, getting closer and closer. I finally reached my house and ran inside. I locked the door and huddled in a corner, terrified. I never saw the woman in white again, but I know she's out there, and I know that she's after me. I'm now 25 years old, and it's been 9 years since I summoned Bloody Mary. But I still think about her every day. I still live in fear of her. I know that she's real, and I know that she's coming for me. Most nights, I still have trouble sleeping, constantly worrying and thinking of when she's going to return for me. I know she's coming, but I don't know when, and I don't know how she will finally get me. I live in fear daily because of something I thought was just a stupid game and had the bright idea to try it out of boredom. I regret that decision, and I will regret that decision until Bloody Mary finally returns for me.